It was a sunny morning in Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso, when Claire Dubois arrived, her blonde hair catching the light, a bouquet of flowers in one hand and a speech in the other. She spoke with a gentle French accent, her expensive sunglasses perched on her head, and her voice calm as she claimed to be there to help African women. The young director of a Western NGO called Hope Forward, Claire, in her early 30s, took photos with babies, strolled through villages, and praised President Ibrahim Traoré on camera for inspiring African youth. But beneath her kindness lay a hidden agenda, one that would unravel in front of the world. Claire's mission, she said, was to support girls' education and women's health. She appeared on state TV, visited schools, snapped selfies with market women, and handed out boxes of books and solar lamps. "It's not about politics," she declared with a smile. "It's about people." But her true base wasn't in Burkina Faso. It was in Abidjan, Côte d'Ivoire. And her real job was far more sinister. By day, she toured rural villages, but at night, she made encrypted phone calls and sent secretive messages to unknown contacts. She traveled with a tall media officer who never shared his name, carried 2 phones, one public, one for security, and asked odd questions. How far is the nearest military base? How often do soldiers change shifts here? Has Burkina Faso received any drones lately? At first, no one suspected her. She was polite, well-dressed, fluent in French, and generous with her gifts. But a whisper began to spread. A woman in a small village murmured to a local leader, "She's not here to help us. She's looking for something." Meanwhile, Burkina Faso's intelligence team had already flagged her. They knew her NGO was linked to a strategic monitoring program funded by an American foundation. They traced her emails to a French IP address, filled with code names like Phase, Orange, and Tax Zone. Still, President Traoré gave a quiet order. Let her continue. The more she thinks she's succeeding, the more she'll reveal. So Claire kept smiling, giving speeches, unaware that her biggest move would lead to her downfall. By her 3rd week, she was everywhere, shaking hands with ministers, speaking on state radio, even posed with schoolgirls holding a sign that read, "Africa first, women always." But behind the scenes, her real work was in full swing. She had visited 9 villages in 7 days, each near military training grounds, oil depots, or drone watchtowers. She claimed she was checking on field progress, but in reality, she was mapping out sensitive locations. One night in her Ouagadougou hotel room, Claire opened her laptop and began marking red circles on a map of Burkina Faso. She labeled the file BF field Access V2. The circles weren't schools. They were military routes, border patrol bases, and drone delivery lines. She attached the map to an encrypted email addressed to a contact named Melvin, sent through a server trace to a NATO-linked office in Abidjan, Côte d'Ivoire. She hit send, smiled, and thought no one had seen, but she didn't know her laptop had been mirrored. Every keystroke was being watched in real time by Burkina Faso's intelligence team. The moment she sent the email, President Traoré received a copy on his secure line. He studied the map, the code names, and then picked up the phone. "Let her keep going," he said. "She just confirmed everything we suspected." The next morning, Claire hosted a press breakfast with foreign journalists, dressed in white, calling Burkina Faso a beacon of hope. But when a local reporter asked why her NGO only worked in military-heavy zones, she laughed nervously. "Pure coincidence," she said. "We go where help is needed." The real coincidence came that same day when the presidential security team found a USB drive hidden in a fake lipstick tube in her bag. Inside were satellite images, drone flight patterns, and photos of government convoys. The time for pretense was nearly over, but Traoré didn't want a quiet arrest. He wanted the world to witness her exposure. So he sent her an invitation. "You are invited to speak at the National Conference on African Sovereignty as a guest of honor." Claire accepted, thrilled and confident, completely unaware she was walking into a trap. The conference was a grand affair. Flags waved, cameras flashed, and a red carpet stretched across the steps of the National Assembly Hall. Inside, hundreds gathered, ministers, students, foreign diplomats, and journalists. Claire sat at the center of it all, wearing a vibrant African dress, smiling and waving like a celebrity. A banner above the stage read, African Sovereignty, Our Voice, Our Future. She was set to speak on the final panel, a session titled, How Foreign Partnerships Empower Africa. She had prepared her speech carefully, writing, Partnership is built on love, truth, and trust. But as she rehearsed backstage, she had no idea the president she praised so often was about to turn her words against her. President Ibrahim Traoré arrived without fanfare, no speech, no announcement. He simply walked in during a panel, sat in the third row, and watched her. Claire noticed him and smiled again when her name was called. She stepped onto the stage with confidence. Burkina Faso is a shining light, she began. I have walked its villages, spoken to its women, seen its hope. The audience clapped politely. She continued, We, the global community, are not here to control. We are here to serve. We are your friends. Then President Traoré stood up. The crowd turned. The moderator stepped aside, and Traoré walked slowly to the front of the hall. Madame Claire, he said gently, you speak of trust. Would you trust us enough to answer a few questions live? Claire froze. Of course, she replied, trying to laugh it off. But the room fell silent. The clapping stopped. The camera zoomed in, and on the screen behind her, a file appeared labeled BF Field Access V2 PDF. Her eyes widened. It was her map. This conference was no longer a celebration. It was the start of her reckoning. The screen glowed with red circles, marked locations, and coded names. Claire blinked, swallowed hard, her smile vanishing. The file wasn't random. It was the exact military access map she'd sent 2 nights earlier from her hotel room to an encrypted server in Abidjan. Traoré spoke softly. Claire, do you recognize this? She hesitated. I'm not sure where this came from, she stammered. He didn't interrupt. Instead, another document appeared, an email. The sender, Claire Dubois at hopeforward.org. The subject, Phase Orange Tracking, comm vehicles, civilian-friendly zones. The body, BF West routes exposed. Minimal resistance from volunteers. Use school visits for visual confirmation. Mission continues. Her own words. Gasps filled the room. Even the foreign diplomats leaned forward in disbelief. A local journalist stood up from the back and shouted. She was spying on the army, using women and children to hide her mission. Claire's hands shook. This isn't what it looks like, she said quickly. I was only sending data for fundraising. Traoré asked quietly, fundraising. He turned to the audience. We cloned her devices. Every file, every message. We traced her instructions from Abidjan to a NATO-linked office titled Cultural Research Desk. She said she came to help our women, but she came to weaken our defense. And worse, she did while holding our children's hands. Claire started crying, tears streaming down her face as the truth hit. Not just evidence, but the eyes of hundreds watching her crumble on stage. A woman in the audience stood up and shouted, You used us! You lied to us! Another whispered, She took photos of my child. I trusted her. Claire dropped the mic, turning to Traoré. Please, can we talk in private? Not like this, she begged, but he didn't answer. He stepped aside as 2 plainclothes officers walked onto stage. They didn't touch her, didn't force her. They just stood beside her, waiting. The cameras zoomed in. Traoré addressed the crowd. They send soft faces now. They send kind eyes, clean hands, and clever names. But beneath them are the same old plans. Claire was escorted down the stairs as the audience sat in stunned silence. A girl near the front cried, not because she supported Claire, but because she had believed her. She said she was one of us. The girl whispered, but she wasn't. And now the world knew. By sunrise, the clip had spread across the continent. Claire Dubois, once hailed as a humanitarian, was now a spy caught on stage. Her own words, her own files, her own downfall. The video went viral on Twitter, WhatsApp, TikTok, Al Jazeera, BBC. Headline screamed, Traoré exposes foreign operative masquerading as charity CEO. Some tried to defend her. A French newspaper called it a misunderstanding. A U.S.-based NGO claimed she was gathering data for research. But no one could explain the emails, the map, or the fake lipstick USB filled with satellite footage of Burkina Faso's military sites. That afternoon, a secure line rang in the presidential compound. President Traoré answered himself. On the other end was Alassane Ouattara, president of Côte d'Ivoire. "Excellency," Ouattara said, "I ask that we treat this matter with diplomacy. This woman holds cross-border ties. Let us handle it quietly." Traoré didn't raise his voice. "She sent sensitive intelligence from your capital to parties in Paris and Washington," he replied. "She stood in our villages with lies in her pocket. You can handle your guests however you want, but in Burkina Faso, we handle traitors one way, with justice." Silence on the line, then a calm reply. "Then we may need to rethink cooperation." Traoré smiled. "If cooperation means swallowing betrayal, Burkina Faso will go hungry instead." He hung up. Within the hour, a second request came, this time from the French ambassador in Ouagadougou, asking for a private meeting, a quiet resolution. Traoré declined. Instead, he walked to the National Press Center and delivered one of his shortest speeches ever. "They ask us to forget. They ask us to forgive. But they never ask themselves what we feel when our operatives sit in our homes, shake our hands, and send our secrets across oceans." In the audience were villagers Claire had visited, mothers, teachers, even children she'd photographed. A woman stood up. "Mr. President, thank you for protecting our trust," she said. That night, across Africa, people didn't just talk about the spy. They talked about the moment her mask was removed, not by force, but by calm truth. Claire sat in a government facility just outside Ouagadougou. No cameras, no press, just a notebook and a weight of the trap she thought she had set, now closed around her. 3 days after her arrest, Claire remained silent. No press statement, no apology. No embassy official could clean up what had burned across the internet. In her holding room, she was no longer the smiling CEO who stood on stage. She was just a woman staring at the walls. Her mission collapsed under its own lies. But outside, Burkina Faso had moved on, not in forgetfulness, but in strength. At the University of Ouagadougou, students held an event titled "They Used to Send Soldiers, Now They Send Smiles." Paintings were displayed, speeches were given, but the most powerful moment came when President Traoré walked in unannounced. He stood before the young audience and spoke plainly. "They used to come with guns. Now they come with cameras. They used to hide behind uniforms. Now they hide behind causes. But whether they wear suits or scarves, whether they speak French or English, if they come to break us, they will leave exposed." The crowd stood and applauded for nearly a minute. But Traoré wasn't done. He pointed to projector screen, where a single sentence appeared, bold and unforgettable. "The next one they send will be received the same way, calmly watched and unforgiven." That line spread across Africa within hours. Young people turned it into stickers, poets into verses, activists painted it on walls from Dakar to Dar es Salaam. Even some Western journalists began asking tougher questions back home. Why do we keep getting caught where we claim we're helping? Meanwhile, Claire Du Bois became a symbol, not just of espionage, but a larger truth. Africa is no longer soft ground, and Burkina Faso under Ibrahim Traoré will no longer bow to diplomacy dressed as deception. Claire was eventually released, but banned for life from re-entering Burkina Faso or any allied Sahel nation. Her name is now remembered not for her charity, but for the moment she stood on stage, holding a microphone, and found herself caught, exposed, and crushed by the truth.